Hi guys, I hope you're doing well today. I am finally getting around to repotting this lovely little Haworthia cluster, which isn't so little. It's in a, I don't know, I think this is a 6 or 7 inch pot in diameter. And it's time. It's spilling over, and the main thing is I want to check its roots and make sure all of these plants have their root systems firmly into the pot. We may or may not divide some of the clusters off, but we shall see once we get going. I'm not quite certain, and it's going to go into this lovely 10-inch pot, which will give it some nice room. The only reason it wouldn't go into this 10-inch pot is if the roots are wanting some more depth already. When it went into this pot a couple years ago, which it has grown so much since then, but when it went into this pot, it didn't have really deep roots. It was pulled off of, you know, another plant and didn't have really deep, thick roots. And so this pot was plenty deep. Sometimes they need deeper. It depends on the variety. Haworthias tend to have really deep, hardy, hefty root systems. First thing first, I'm going to cut off this little flower stalk here. It's all done blooming. As you can see, just a couple little dried up just to get that out of my way. Alrighty, and then we're going to dump this out and look at their roots. So you have to keep in mind that your Haworthia may need some deeper pots than some of your other succulents that we tend to like a lot more shallow. But I always say, now it's almost impossible to do this without breaking a few leaves. I'm just going to say that right up front, and I can see just from being on the window ledge and being pushed against the window that a few leaves are already broken off here. So I'm not going to cry over that. All right, this is just gonna lift out for me. But like I said, I always say better to go shallow first and then deeper as your root system grows. Plant for the root system that you currently have, not the one that it will have when it's fully developed, because these guys can take a little while, and it's better to have a pot that dries out a bit faster and then a deeper pot that has a lot of dirt below the root line where they're not going. So this root system, where the roots aren't going, sorry, I'm getting all distracted. This root system is plenty, is really healthy and white. You can see nice roots, but it's plenty shallow for this pot here. This is gonna be plenty deep. I think it's 4 or 5 inches deep here. Just removing, this is pretty perlite heavy on this pot. I think I didn't have any pumice when I was potting this one, so I used perlite instead. I mean, I see pumice, but I must have run out. So I probably used perlite instead, which is just fine. I don't prefer it. It's not my preference. It doesn't seem to be what helps them thrive quite as much as pumice, but there's definitely nothing, it's nothing to sneeze at, as we would say. It's just fine, and you just need the light, airy quality for their roots. That's what they love. Alrighty, so for my mixture here, I'm using a mixture of pumice, vermiculite, and peat again. I just, sometimes, or a lot of times, I use coconut husk instead of the peat. I'm just kind of experimenting with these last few that I have been potting up and using a little bit of peat for just a bit of acidity. I've been experimenting and doing some videos, which I just have to do some editing and piecing them all together because they had to be done in sections just because of the way it is. But I've been doing some videos on water and water quality and what to do if you have hard well water and your plants don't like it, and just different easy ways of filtration. And if you don't know, peat is used to filter water, so is pumice, but peat is used to filter hard water, especially in fish tanks. It actually helps adjust the pH as well as lower the actual mineral level of the water. And so we have well water that's hard. And I try to use rainwater, I use distilled water sometimes, etc. But sometimes I use well water when I need to rinse them all off or give them a bath, which I do a few times a year, just rinse all their leaves off and get all the dust off and that kind of stuff. And sometimes I just want to, it's just quick and easy to grab well water. And so using peat helps me manage, I'll say, the hardness of our water. And sometimes that's through filtration and doing things which I'll again be showing in some videos soon, but other times it's just through adding a little bit to my soil. And again, you can see it's just a little bit. It's not enough to make it very soil-like at all. So it's about, this particular mixture is about 6 parts pumice to 2 parts vermiculite and 1 part peat. And I think this might be a little too much, actually. So when you plant clusters like this, you want to plant them in a well. And what I mean by that is have some soil up along the sides of your pot and then have this area more hollow down in the bottom. This helps prevent and pack it down, this bottom area, pack it down, not really hard, just a little bit, and then you can add a little bit more loose mixture on top. This, if you mound it up this way, the dirt tends to settle off of the plants, and these outside plants tend to kind of fall off the sides. Let me just demonstrate here. But if you do it kind of in a well, you can set your whole cluster down in, more down into it, and then you can add soil from the sides here. And it's a bit more tedious, but I find that the plants like it a lot better, and there's less likelihood of the upper plants becoming detached when they were set down into soil that had been packed instead of on top of unpacked, on top of an unpacked mound. And I know it kind of seems backwards, but this is what works for my clusters. And I really love Haworthia clusters in pots like this. If you've seen a lot of my babies, you know that. I don't like removing their pups very much. I like leaving them together as much as is possible. All right, I'm gonna have to do this. If you can't get dirt down in, pardon me, shaking the camera. If you can't get dirt down in a side, you got to get creative and tip and bang, because you want dirt all around their roots here, so that none of these side pups get unhappy. And it's almost impossible when you have a cluster like this to get it perfectly centered in your pot, and so one side inevitably tends to... My kitty's grousing at me because I'm making so much noise. You should be glad you're not watching this video, kitty. Shaking the camera all around like a crazy person. All right. I think I will finish the rest of this off camera because it's just going to be me repeating this and tipping and tilting and shaking and banging and doing it again, and I will be back in just a minute when it's all done. All right, I'm almost done, and I'm not really sure how to show this, but there's 2 really large rosettes up here, and there's a bit of a separation between them, and the soil has settled out a bit down in between, and they're sending out some aerial roots that I can see. So I'm just picking off these dried leaves that I can get to and kind of spreading with my fingers, and I'm going to attempt to show you. Just kind of making a hole here like this, as much as is possible without hurting either plant too much, which I kind of nicked one of the ends of the leaves here, but since I'm repotting, this is my chance to do this. And oops, okay. I went ahead and dislodged this one completely. So That's all right. Since I have dislodged that, that will give me the chance to add a little bit more soil down into here. So when these Haworthia get in clusters that are large like this, the soil obviously settles down. Come on, baby. We got some babies that we're trying to come out that are really wedged down in there and have, look how long this baby is. Look at this etiolated, it was growing down in and amongst trying to get out. So I'm gonna actually remove this guy and he can go in a rooting tray. Look at that. There we go. And there's another root that I'll put in a rooting tray. Okay, perfect. Look at this. Now you can see there's a lot of roots exposed and just general, everything looks really good though. Got distracted again. Everything looks really great, but there's a fair amount of roots exposed. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more potting mix to this. And again, this is the pumice and vermiculite with just a little bit of peat in it. And then just shake, 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 shake. And this is just gonna settle into all those cracks and crevices and kind of cover those roots just a little bit. This isn't necessary a lot of times. A lot of times your clusters can stay healthy without doing this, but it gives their roots a little bit more contact with the potting medium and generally helps the cluster stay healthy longer. And since I want this to stay a nice pretty cluster and this lovely little plant is going to go right back, which this guy didn't, this root, I know you can see this root is snapped off here, but this did not just happen. This big root was severed before. That was not me because it is calloused all off here. It was just barely lodging in with these roots here. So this will give this guy some more contact with actual medium as well. You could also totally take this off and put it in another pot and just kind of rearrange and jiggle the rest of these guys around to fill in this this space. That is completely something that would be really good to do. Alrighty. He's good. He's back in contact with the soil. Those roots will continue to grow. If you saw my video where I was repotting the Cooperi truncata, the Haworthia, and I was talking about their roots and how they use the nutrition out of their roots to survive, and then they make more roots. If you haven't seen that, I'll put a link to that video in the description box below, because it's always a good thing to keep in mind when you're transplanting your Haworthia, just to remember that those dead roots that look kind of hollow aren't necessarily a bad sign. But if you have no new thick root growth and only dead hollow roots, then obviously you're going to want to baby your roots a little bit more and go about things a little bit differently, hopefully. Alrighty, that's it for today. This guy is going to go back into its little window, and after a few days of recuperating and recovering from any broken roots, it'll get a good water, and we will give you an update on this at some point in the near future, hopefully. I'm going to actually clean these windows off. We got some hard water stains. They got a good, all of my Haworthia I pulled out about a month ago and looked over them all, and they got a good rinse with the well water, but our well water is a little bit hard, and so I got to clean off their leaves again, which is why I don't top water a lot. I like to bottom water to keep their leaves clean, and I like to use rainwater instead of our hard well water, but once in a while it doesn't hurt them at all to have a little bit of the minerals in their water. And sometimes the dust needs to just be rinsed off really good, and they just need a little bit of a bath, and it's the easiest to do it in the sink, but I got to go back and remove some of this hard water. I'm not sure if it actually shows up on the camera, but you can see just kind of very, very light white deposits on some of the leaves. Anyways, if you would like to join our Facebook group, the link to that will be in the description box below. You can also follow me on Instagram or Garden Tags if you are not on Facebook. And until next time, happy growing!